Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul. Hope you're having an amazing day. I want to talk to you guys about the PlayStation 5 Pro because now the release information is really starting to get nailed down. So over the past 24 hours, it has certainly been an interesting roller coaster, as there were many fears that the console may have been delayed until 2025. There were articles popping up about this, courtesy of basically an offhanded tweet from Tom Henderson over at Insider Gaming. He said, if the console is released in 2024 on Twitter, as a reply to a user. Now, it is worth noting that, of course, articles then started to pop up, and he hadn't confirmed anything on this tweet. He was being, a little joking, and obviously at the end of the day, until Sony officially confirms something, nothing is confirmed, i.e., even if, I had a phone call tomorrow with Mark Cerny, he's like, dude, trust me, on the 6th of November, the PS5 Pro is going to be available on store shelves. Well, he might be a great source, but something can change, and I think we've all seen instances of games being delayed, software being delayed, and so on and so forth. So again, until something is officially confirmed and it does appear on store shelves, And I believe that a lot of people were kind of running with what Tom said. Since then, though, there have been a few updates, including some sources that I've been speaking to, and many of those sources have actually been pretty reliable. They gave a lot of the information regarding the specifications of the PlayStation 5 Pro that I was leaking, including, things like the Tempest engine, upgrades, and all this other stuff. But anyway, to put things into perspective, let's read out a quick excerpt of the Insider Gaming article. So Tom says, and I quote, developers can submit their applications supporting the PS5 Pro to CertOps on July the 30th, a date understood to have been finalised about 18 months ago. Additionally, the applications for PS5 games that will be released after the 15th will be required to support the PS5 Pro, but this is not the release date of the console. So, although the exact release date, the information which was released to PlayStation earlier this week to developers suggests the PS5 Pro is on track to be released later this year. Tom also goes ahead and mentions that the documents that he's personally seen, last year anyway, does indicate that the console is on track to release in November. Several times, I have also mentioned on the channel, as well as on Twitter, that November is the date that I've been hearing as well, with a September announcement from Sony. Basically, this is very similar to what we've seen with previous consoles, including, of course, the PS4 Pro. Basically, Sony are, to a degree, a creature of habit, and this is a strategy that works pretty well. Now, at the end of the day, the problem is when you have something in motion, as in the release of a console, developers all need to work towards that, and development costs are also a thing, i.e., let's say you're a studio and you're putting effort into either a PS5 Pro enhanced version of a game, or maybe you'll release it alongside that. You need to make sure that you're recouping those development costs as quickly as possible, because at the end of the day, it's not like you're developing an entirely separate game. It's not like you can't have any assets that are, kind of transferable between them. However, you still are putting more work in. And games development doesn't exactly work like this, of course, so I'm somewhat, simplifying things. But even if your workload increases maximum, let's say 3%, it's still an extra 3%, right? So I'm just saying you want to start recouping those costs as quickly as possible. And the developers that I've spoken to, they've told me a few things. Firstly, at least developers I've spoken to have not been given an exact release date. They have just said that they believe that this is the schedule Sony are keeping. However, it's not like they've said, the console is going to be released on, say, 15th of November or something along those lines. They just think that November is probably the target date, given the things that have been said. The next point is Sony seem to be a lot cagier this time around when it comes to the information regarding the PS5 Pro. And I think some of this is essentially because of many of the leaks concerning the system. The rumour through the grapevine is that Sony just wants to be a lot tighter-lipped going forward with its kind of console development and how things go forward. I don't know how realistic that is, because again, you need to brief developers, right? Like, you can't just be like, well, the console is going to release, let's just hypothetically say this is not a leak, by the way, this is just an example, but let's just say November the 12th, the in 2027, the PS6 gets released. You can't just tell developers like 2 days before, by the way, here's our development kits, go ham. Obviously, that's just not going to work, so there is obviously that kind of give and take, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle that going forward. Personally, I still think November is a very realistic goal for the PS5 Pro. It's going to be very curious to see what Sony does in terms of the pricing for this system. So far, I haven't been given any pricing information whatsoever. I will be very curious to see whether I mean, there's obviously multiple strategies Sony could go with. They could replace the PS5 current pricing with the PS5 Pro. The PS5 Pro could be more expensive, let's say $100 or 150, what have you, depending on your region and so on. It's going to be very interesting. I'll be interested also to know what the bill of materials is for the console. Obviously, at the end of the day, the console is going to be a lot more performative. It has a crap ton of additional compute units and, you know, just a bunch of other stuff in the machine, so it is going to be more expensive, presumably, to produce, but I haven't been given a bill of material breakdown, and at the end of the day, nothing is confirmed anyway officially by Sony. I suspect that the console will do very well when Grand Theft Auto 6 gets released. I imagine, especially if the developers really put a lot of work in, if, you know, we see like Rockstar really go ham with the, you know, with the implementations of like additional visual features, maybe better performance modes, what have you, I think it could well be a real console seller. At the end of the day, the PS5 is a really good system, but if you have like a high refresh rate 4K screen, I suspect that it's going to be very popular with certain gamers, and ultimately, while I am a PC gaming whore, not everyone is, and I would probably still buy a Pro. Not really for Grand Theft Auto. Like, I like GTA, but I kind of just play it for a bit, then get bored, then come back to it, maybe put the cheats in, that kind of thing. It's just not my type of game. I know it's a good game, it's just not one that I can personally get into for long periods. With that said, there are many games, of course, which are exclusive to Sony ecosystem. Maybe they come to the PC eventually, but I don't necessarily want to wait. Wolverine, for example, yeah, I want to play that on day one on PlayStation. I'm not waiting for the PC port. I'll still probably double dip, but that's beside the point. So anyway, guys, what I do believe is Sony are going to be releasing the PS5 Pro in November. At the end of the day, anything can change, but I think it's quite likely. Sony are a creature of habit at this point. Developers are working on things. I'm hearing pretty good things about the system. It seems to be pretty easy, generally speaking, to develop for. And I suspect that it's going to be a nice visual bump for mini games. It's going to be curious to see how many games actually get patches. Obviously, you're probably going to get like Spider-Man 2, those type of games, which are obviously going to get patches. God of War Ragnarok, I suspect, is going to be a pretty obvious one as well. But with that said, take care of yourselves, have an amazing day. By the way, yeah, it's kind of a rush video today. I was actually working on a completely separate project, and I only ended up recording this kind of last minute because I got yet another DM about the subject. So I was like, okay. With that said, take care of yourselves, have an amazing day. Bye for now.